So we talked a lot yesterday about the hearings on radicalization of Muslims that was going on in Washington, D.C., Representative Peter King and that whole thing, and you've probably been following the controversy, which is mostly in the media. I don't know how much it's in the real world, but and the media has just been just crushing this guy for that's un-American, the slander of a religion that is
echoes of McCarthyism, Jack,
looking into Muslim radicals,
right?
And the coverage of the hearings yesterday was driving me freaking crazy.
It's astounding.
Including when I tuned in the evening news with Brian Williams.
And now to the congressional hearing today that for a time appeared to blow up in the face of the man who gavelled it into session. New York Republican Congressman Peter King admits he's obsessed with 9/11. He runs the Homeland Security Committee in the House, and he has wanted to hold hearings to root out radical Islam in the U.S. But things did not go the way he planned.
Wow.
How
do you know?
How's that for laying out a story before you get into it? So if you haven't heard it, one of the representatives, who is a Muslim,
Keith Ellison,
guy from Minnesota, broke down crying. Can we do a little bit of him crying yesterday?
He saw all of the Star Wars movies, and it's well known that his new Honda was the one that read with the Young Jedi license plates. Mr. Hamdani bravely sacrificed his life to try to help others on 9/11. After the tragedy, some people tried to smear his character solely because of his Islamic faith.
So that's Representative Keith Ellison breaking down crying, talking about a Muslim that was in the World Trade Center on 9/11 and died.
Guy was an EMT, yeah.
Was an EMT and died on 9/11.
Yeah.
So,
boo-hooing it up over that incident all those years ago, okay?
For instance, I'm watching MSNBC with Chris Matthews, and he says, similar to what Brian Williams said, things did not go to the way Representative King planned. In fact, it was a complete backfire. The image America will remember is this, and then played the clip of him crying. Because if somebody gets emotional and cries, well, then something terrible must have been done to them.
And this is a corollary to the, well, if you're offended, you must be right. If you're crying, you must be right on the facts and completely righteous in whatever you believe. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cried. Wow, are we a stupid people. I've heard more just blatantly stupid things said in reference to this hearing than I think I have from any news story in history. It's unbelievable. Just nonsense. This is the image people will remember. What does that have to do with the question that we grown-ups are trying to deal with? Radicalization of people in the United States, which happens.
That does happen and was described by a variety of people yesterday in the hearings, although that did not make it onto the newscasts for some reason.
Including the parents of these young guys who'd gotten radicalized and became murderers, to the horror of their entire family.
And saying they were pressured by mosques to not cooperate with police or talk to the media. A lot of what Representative King was looking for, he found yesterday, but none of that got into the newscast because everybody's obsessed with this story of a Muslim that died on 9/11, to which my response would be, what the freak has that got to do with anything?
It made Keith Ellison cry, Jack. I don't think you understand.
What does that have to do with anything?
The congressman was crying. Did you see how moved he was? Boy, they are like us.
So
Holy crap, you're stupid, America.
You've got the most watched evening newscast in America portraying it as spinning out of control and not going the way he wanted and playing the guy crying. And if I had been there as a congressman, I would have raised my hand. With all due respect to your tears, what the hell are you talking about? What has this got to do with this hearing at all? For which I would have been vilified and impeached probably. But seriously, everybody was so uncomfortable in the media. Oh, can you believe this? This is how awful it has gotten. What? I'm sorry you're crying, but I don't understand what you're talking about.
And what the hell does it? So there was a nice Muslim EMT who died. I'm very sorry. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? What are you trying to say? There's at least one nice Muslim who likes to help people? Well, I knew that. There's millions of them. That's not what we're talking about. That's like denying I have cancer because he doesn't have it. So how could I? it's insane. Oh, my God, there are no grown-ups. There are no grown-ups.
I was absolutely amazed at that.
Listen, this is a similar thought, a similar bizarre smokescreen tactic. It's the Sheila Jackson Lee stuff. God, is she reprehensible. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am overwhelmed by this hearing and the lack of factual basis for it, and I don't believe Muslims should be compared to Nazis and Klansmen and others. It is an outrage, and as you well know, you've already said that there are not enough. There are too many mosques in this country. That is absurd. It is outrageous that someone proceeds to hold up another controversial poster. It is outrageous.
The time of the gentlelady is expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I yield back.
5 minutes.
At one point, I guess she said in a different clip, let me see if I can find it. I thought it was in that clip. She says something to the effect of, I don't see these radical Muslims testifying. I just see nice people. What does that mean, Representative?
So
what are you talking about?
If you watch the news or listen to the coverage of this, all you heard was Representative Ellison crying about this guy that was a nice Muslim who died on 9/11, and this is all the media covered, and we should all be ashamed that we even had these hearings or even looked into it. What they didn't play for you was some of the other testimony that happened yesterday. For instance, this dad who talked about his son who was brainwashed by Islamists. This U.S. Doctor who said the U.S. has a significant problem with Muslim radicalization. I'm Muslim, and I realize it's my problem, and I need to fix it. We can close our eyes and pretend it doesn't exist. We can call everybody a bigot or Islamophobe, even if they talk about it. You're not going to solve the problem. The problem is increasing exponentially.
We didn't get that
going on
the
about
news.
He told the panel that the separatism preached in many mosques makes Muslim American youth ripe for radicalization. A lot of what Representative King was looking for was in the hearing yesterday, was in the testimony.
It's spoken in very persuasive and moving ways.
And nobody paid any attention to it. The only thing anybody paid attention to was this guy crying about a completely irrelevant story. Completely 100% irrelevant. Right. And nobody had the freaking guts. I actually blame Representative King or any of the other, I don't know if it breaks down by party lines, but I suppose it's close. Republicans or any other Democrats who agreed with Representative King in the hearings to say, with all due respect, sir, I don't understand what that's got to do with this.
So there's one nice Muslim. That doesn't mean anything. Of course there are. Moving on now. Representative Ellison, get yourself together if you want to come back and talk later, but Do you have anything to say about radicalization going on in mosques or our youth at risk for radicalization, or are Muslim communities afraid to talk to the police? Do you have anything to say on that, or do you just want to talk about a guy you knew who died on 9/11 who happened to be a Muslim? Completely was so strange, and nobody pointed that out. And I followed a lot of news because I got so worked up about this last night. Nobody pointed that out. This has nothing to do with anything. They all used their sad voice, but things got away from Representative King quickly when this happened. Boy, they have no capacity for critical thinking.
What a bunch of children! What a bunch of children it is that write and follow the news.
It is so easy to take the American eye off the ball. That's all it takes is some Muslim representative who, by the way, is left a Trotsky blubbering to get us to ignore the substance of the issue. Hey, hit me with that doctor's quote again, because it factors directly into something that I've got here.
Mr. Zuhdi Jasser, a Muslim physician from Arizona, told the panel that separatism preached in many mosques makes Muslim American youth ripe for radicalization. It is a problem we can only solve. Christians, Jews, non-Muslims cannot solve Muslim radicalization. We can close our eyes and pretend it doesn't exist. We can call everybody a bigot or an Islamophobe if they even talk about it, but you're not going to solve the problem. The problem is increasing exponentially. The U.S. has a significant problem with Muslim radicalization. I'm Muslim, and I realize it's my problem, and I need to fix it.
All right, listen to this.
You didn't see that on the news last night, of course.
Listen to this from the Chicago Tribune. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, our old buddies, for instance, has launched one of the most aggressive media campaigns in the country, often making itself the public face of the Muslim community. The group has an extremely strained relationship now with law enforcement. The Justice Department has linked the group to a terror financing case, and the FBI will not work directly with its members. By the way, that's a big change. The FBI used to work extensively with members of CAIR. They've now decided back away. The group's California chapter recently put up a poster reading, "Build a wall of resistance. Don't talk to the FBI." CARE in California is telling its members, build a wall of resistance, don't talk to the FBI. But Representative King is somehow a lunatic or a bigot for asking the question, what is the state of cooperation between the Muslim community and law enforcement? Or that question's irrelevant because Keith Ellison was crying. Seriously, where are the grown-ups?
I don't know. A father testified on how his son was radicalized. He said tomorrow it could be your son or daughter. Political correctness is getting in the way of looking at this happening across America. That was not on your evening newscasts. Only the crying a Muslim died on 9/11, so we should be ashamed at even thinking about it. That's just embarrassing.
Vince, we need more clips of the hearing, whatever you can get. It's unbelievable. Your calls, too, 1-866-331-TALK, 1-866-331-8255.